A Few Good Men. A Few Good Men is an American legal drama film directed by Rob Reiner. The plot story is about the U.S. Marines Lance Corporal Howard Dawson and Private First Class Loudon Downey are facing a general court-martial, accused of murdering fellow Marine William Santiago at the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba. Santiago had poor relations with his fellow Marines, compared unfavorably to them, and broke the chain of command in an attempt to get transferred out of Guantanamo. Base Commander Colonel Nathan Jessup, Jack Nicholson, and his officers argue about the best course of action, while Jessup's executive officer, Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Markinson, advocates that Santiago be transferred. Jessup dismisses the option and instead orders Santiago's commanding officer, Lieutenant Jonathan James Kendrick, to retrain Santiago to become a better Marine. The story is based on fact, as transmuted into a Broadway play by Sorkin. A Marine at the Guantanamo Naval Air Station in Cuba died after a hazing incident. Two young Marines are charged with the death, but a nosy Navy legalese in Washington, Demi Moore, suspects there is more to the story and wants to investigate. She is prodded by her own superior to assign a lazy Navy lawyer, Cruz, to the case, perhaps because he has an unblemished record of settling out of court, and can be counted on to handle the case without generating public embarrassment. After Moore and Cruz met with the accused young Marines, she realizes that they have a sticky case on their hands because the unwritten Marine Code means that the two won't talk, even to save themselves. One of them, a black kid played by Wolfgang Bodison, is so fiercely proud of the corpse that he would rather go to prison for years. While it is believed that the motive in Santiago's murder was retribution for naming Dawson in a fentanyl shooting, naval investigator and lawyer Lieutenant Commander Galloway largely suspects that Dawson and Downey carried out a Code Red order, which is a violent extrajudicial punishment. Galloway wants to defend the two and has a great enthusiasm, but Caffey is a lazy lawyer and spends most of his time playing with the bow. Galloway and Caffey instantly conflict, with Galloway unsettled by Caffey's apparent laziness, whilst Caffey resents Galloway's interference. Caffey and Galloway travel to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to question Colonel Jessup and others. Under questioning, Jessup claims that Santiago was set to be transferred the next day. When Caffey negotiates a plea bargain with the prosecutor Ross, Dawson and Downey refuse to go along, insisting that Kendrick had indeed given them the Code Red order and that they never intended Santiago to die. Dawson shows outright contempt for Caffey, refusing to salute or acknowledge him as an officer, because Dawson sees him as having no honor by choosing a plea bargain over defending their actions. Lieutenant Colonel Markinson disappears, and Caffey plans to have himself removed as counsel, as he sees going to trial as pointless. At the arraignment, Caffey unexpectedly enters a plea of not guilty, explaining to Galloway and Weinberg that he realized the reason he was chosen to handle this case was because it was expected he would accept the plea and the matter would be kept quiet. After the case begins, Markinson later reveals himself to Caffey and states unequivocally that Jessup never ordered the transfer for William Santiago. The defense manages to establish that CPL Dawson had been denied promotion for smuggling food to a Marine who had been sentenced to bread and water, clearly disobeying a direct order. However, the defense then suffered two major setbacks. Downey, under cross-examination, reveals that he wasn't actually present when Dawson received the supposed Code Red order, and Markinson, after he tells Caffey that Jessup never ordered the transfer, but ashamed that he failed to protect the Marine under his command, commits suicide before he can testify. Without Markinson's testimony, Caffey believes that the case lost. He later returns home in a drunken stupor, lamenting that he fought the case instead of taking a deal. Galloway encourages Caffey to call Jessup as a witness, despite the risk of being court-martialed for smearing a high-ranking officer. Jessup spurs evenly with Caffey's questioning, but is unnerved when Caffey points out a contradiction in his testimony. Jacob stated his Marines never disobey orders and that Santiago was to be transferred for his own safety. Then Kafi questions. Jacob ordered his men to leave Santiago alone. Then how could Santiago be in danger? Irate at being caught in a lie and disgusted by what he sees as Kafi's impudence towards the Marines, Jacob extols the military's importance and his own to the national security. When he was asked if he ordered the code red, Jacob continues with his self-important rant until after repeatedly being asked the question, he bellows with contempt that in fact he did order the code red. Jacob then tries to leave the courtroom but is promptly arrested. Dawson and Downey are cleared of the murder and conspiracy charges, but found guilty of conduct unbecoming, in order to be dishonorably discharged. Dawson accepts the verdict, but Downey doesn't understand what they did wrong. Dawson explains that they had failed to defend those too weak to fight for themselves, like Santiago. As the two are leaving, Kafi tells Dawson that he doesn't need to wear a patch on his arm to have honor. Dawson shades his previous contempt for Kafi, acknowledges him as an officer, and renders a salute. The film ends with Kafi and Ross exchanging cuddles before Ross departs to arrest Kendrick. The theme of honor weaves its way through a lot of characters in A Few Good Men. Burt Sarkar and Renner gave Cruz the biggest gorilla to wrestle, a man who dishonors himself by the very way he chooses to live his life. It's heavy lifting, and it's not hard to evoke Cruz's very public personal life. Another main theme is the abuse of power. Their commander Nathan Jacob abused his power by ordering Harlot to carry out an illegal extrajudicial punishment, which involved humiliating and hurting his comrade. Nathan used violence to force William into his rule. He showed no remorse for his actions and defended them by calling them necessary. In my opinion, there is a feminism side in A Few Good Men, as the commander refused to assign Galloway to represent Dawson and Downey in the court, and instead he preferred a man to represent them, saying that the administration will choose the best man for this role, and suddenly the best qualified man was a lazy lawyer, performed by Tom Cruise. Moving to the main characters, we shall start by Daniel Kafi. Daniel is a lieutenant in the Navy. He's enlisted by the court to be the lawyer for the murder case of William Santiago. He doesn't take his work seriously and initially tries to close the case in a hurry with their investigation. Another important character is Nathan Jacob. Nathan is a colonel in charge of the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba. He orders a code red on William through Jonathan, his second in command. Nathan is a corrupt leader who abuses his position by subjecting William to an extrajudicial punishment. Furthermore, Galloway is another main character in A Few Good Men. She's a young woman that has a great position in the Navy in Washington, D.C. as a commander. Rob Reiner's A Few Good Men is one of those movies that tells you what it's going to do, does it, and then tells you what it did. It doesn't think of the audience. It's very bright. There is a scene that is absolutely wrong. In it, a lawyer, played by Tom Cruise, previews his courtroom strategy to his friends. The strategy then works as planned, which means that an element of surprise is missing from the most important moment in the movie, and the key scene by Jake Nicholson is undermined, robbed of suspense, and made inevitable.